Okay, everyone, change of our plans, but we have to be adaptable in today's world. Okay, so let me announce our first panel discussion speakers then, and we will switch to our offline part at first. So our first panel discussion is called The Quantum Frontier, and let me announce our speakers. Dmitry Nagornych, please give it up for Dmitry. Konstantin Papish. Let's give a warm round of applause to Konstantin. And we have our other participants who are going to join us online, remotely. Okay, that's Dmitry Gerasimov, Pierre-Luc, Jan Smith. Please, welcome. Welcome to our discussion. Let's give a warm round of applause for our speakers.
Great. I believe answer is yes, if everyone hears me. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Dmitry Gerasimov, CEO of Cellframe, and here is our first Quantum Down event. And here we are. Now, let me introduce our participants. And here is Pierre-Luc, founder and CEO of Pauli Group. They delivers post-quantum solutions for blockchain. Then Jan Smith, founder of Quantum EVM company. That's a quantum variant of EVM machine for based on Cellframe as well. And and in reality, and I supposed also to be in reality with you. Unfortunately, they have to be remotely. And here. Dmitry Nagornych, founder and CEO of .flat and technical lead and Cellframe development team, Konstantin Papish. And here we are, and let's begin our first panel. It's about quantum frontier. It's about quantum threat. What's coming? What's the threat? What's the reason why we are here today? And let's begin from the first speaker that's planned to be. Let me check. It's Pierre-Luc. Pierre-Luc.
Awesome. Thanks, Dimitri. I guess we're at the panel, so am I expected to do the presentation, or I can just start talking about quantum?
Sorry. Maybe I'm wrong in the. Sorry, one moment. Yes, you had to make a short report on roadmap to get timeline for quantum attacks. You can just speak about it. It's not doesn't matter. Just the topic.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess why we are here is that because quantum is coming. So the few years ago, it's been known for some time that eventually quantum computing would break elliptic curve cryptography. Back when Bitcoin was made in 2008, people thought, okay, it's going to take 100 years. We're good for a while. Fast forward 20 years later, and now we think we're about 5 years away. So it's happening fast. It's largely a consequence of the fact that the qubits technologies are working, and people are thinking, okay, now that it's working, we can make very big quantum computers in the next few years. And the first thing that those big quantum computers can do is break elliptic curve cryptography. So, and not much else actually. So even if we want to at some point do quantum simulation, we'll need quantum computers much larger than what can break Bitcoin. So now is a good time to start migrating to post-quantum cryptography, and notably on the side of cryptocurrency. So I'm excited to see what Cellframe is working on, with respect to post-quantum layer 0 blockchain.
Like everyone is working in this direction who's in here today. Yes, it's not only about some cryptography cracking. It's really important in other interests. Maybe it's much more important in other interests. For example, quantum simulation for modeling of big complicating molecules can help to invent new drugs, new medicine, new pills, and something like this. How new treatments. However, we're more focused on cryptography here today, and if we're talking about more about risks, challenges, and opportunities in a current situation. So let's give a microphone to Jan Smith. What do you have to talk about this? What do you have to say about this?
So my concern is that the people making the quantum computers have basically said, whether or not it's accurate or true, that they'll be ready to attack Bitcoin and cryptography in 2027. So that's when I think the risk really begins, because that's when they say that they're going to be ready. Unfortunately, it's actually really complicated to make the migration from current cryptography of elliptic curves to post-quantum cryptography. And so Ethereum is looking at basically like the fastest they can do this is probably 2 to 3 years, including a little bit of testing. But the quantum attackers are saying that they're going to be ready in 2 years. So it's a problem that I'm going to be covering in my presentation that basically explains what's necessary for the migration to occur. One of the problems that we're having is that a lot of people don't want to begin an expensive and difficult process until after the threat is very clear and plain. But it's going to take everybody 2 to 3 years to migrate. If Bitcoin had all of the code available right now, they would still take approximately 1.5 years to migrate. And what they're doing is they're refusing to migrate. They're refusing to change it because even after a quantum attack, 1 Bitcoin will still be 1 Bitcoin. It doesn't matter what the price of that Bitcoin is, the number won't change. The owner will change, but the number won't. So they see this as a not their problem. And that puts $2 trillion at risk. With an $800 billion sale of 6.2 million Bitcoins, you're looking at catastrophic problems across the entire industry. When you look at Bitcoin as a reserve currency, people are pledging Bitcoin as the security and the collateral for a loan that allows them to trade. If the Bitcoin drops, there is an immediate smart contract liquidation, and it sells not only their Bitcoin, but all of their assets as well. So even a 50% drop in the price would suddenly have a cascading effect across the entire ecosystem. And Bitcoin is simply refusing to make any changes to the cryptography. So this is a future problem that we needed to have begun work on in 2024.
Yeah, that's a problem. For example, in our ecosystem that's supposed to be quantum secure, still there are big, maybe biggest number of our holders are still holding quantum unsecure versions of our tokens, ERC20, BIP20. So everyone here is who is building its own blockchain protocol. So everyone is interested here to not to let Ethereum and Bitcoin to get down, because it will get down the whole industry, and that's a really big problem. Migration. Tomorrow, Bitcoin community will say, okay, we have a new version of protocol. We have a quantum resistant signature. Let's switch on this new technology. It still will take a lot of time. And with Bitcoin, maybe it will be worse, because it will require a lot of there is no any responsible person who will go on all exchanges, will say them to update or something like this. It will be a long story, and here I think everyone who is sitting here has advantage because it's easier for us to adopt to the situation, you know. Here we are looking on from the different sides. For example, Pierre, as I understand, producer solutions. So some of your solutions Pierre based on Ethereum, as I understand. And here, by the way, I want to discuss also about the risks that not only comes not only from digital signatures. We have vulnerability signatures. It's clear. Everyone have heard about it. However, there are another quantum vulnerabilities in most used cryptography. And what you have heard about symmetric cryptography, most used symmetric cryptography, I'm talking about AES algorithm. How it's vulnerable, especially if we're talking about most used variant of this algorithm?
In the near term, I think it's really going to be elliptic curve. So on the side of symmetric encryption, like AES, like AES isn't a perfect scrambler. So like if you encrypt data with AES, like there's always like some amount of structure, but like there's no good way to exploit that information so far with quantum. Maybe at some point in the future, but like right now there isn't. And the machines required to break AES, which is say the brute force method of like Grover search, they would be much larger than what you would need to break elliptic curve cryptography. So the resource difference is say multiple, like each say encryption in AES that you would take to break would probably be equivalent to breaking like 1 billion Bitcoin keys. So by the time you break like one cipher, you like the old cryptocurrencies have been wiped out. So like in terms of urgency, it's really the asymmetric cryptography which is critical right now. And for
it
for
will be
crypto,
the first victim.
everyone must upgrade individually. That's the difficulty.
I read a paper that said 4 million qubits for breaking AES 256 at 12 rounds, which is probably like what 2029 or 2030 if Quantum hits their 2027 target of 1 million qubits, which they probably, they'll probably slip a little bit because they're still going to be doing hardware and real estate development up until the end of 2027. So it might be 2030 or 2029 before they actually have a quantum computer that has 4 million qubits. But the bigger risk here is that that number will go down in the meantime. And it may be an inaccurate number. It may have a flawed algorithm, but the active volume architecture tends to be more resource efficient than other techniques. So they can reuse their qubits as opposed to processing them in a line. They can use the same qubit again for doing work in the background and then swap in the answer. My concern is that it took 8 years for the NIST to evaluate which post-quantum cryptography we should use and come up with a standard. And I think that we need to have an SSL and TLS upgrade before NIST spends so much time going through their next wave of analysis on symmetric ciphers. So I think it's something that we should consider and something that we should plan for. But it's not something that is going to be hard to upgrade because the symmetric cipher is a very configurable part of every SSL and TLS session. It's not like deploying new public-private keys where it requires authentication and verification. It's a very difficult task. So the rollout of a new symmetric cipher would be very quick, but the rollout for, upgrading your public-private keys is going to take a lot of time.
Indeed. Yes, for sure, because we don't use symmetric keys for something unchangeable. For example, we always digital signature is a problem because it's a way to authorize someone in somewhere, and symmetric cryptography usually we use to encrypt the channel. Only the vector I see here, it's systems like Lightning that transfers through the symmetric encrypted channel one-time keys, but this such to attack such system you need to be man in the middle, so it's really complicated. Anyway, it's also not the first victim. One question that I love to ask everyone when we're talking about quantum threat, it's one-way cryptography. How it's vulnerable? What do you think about it? Is it how? It's a really interesting question because different people answer differently on this. Is it possible, and how much qubits will be required to find the collisions in the SHA 256 or maybe in Kichak? We just a few weeks figured out the different things as HA3 and Kichak. I'm really worried in this because if we have a possibility to build quantum algorithms that encrypt does hash functions, we just repeat it in quantum circuits, they're all revertible. So if we will revert, we'll not get the original data, of course, because it's just different spaces, but we will find collision. We find the same keys that produce the same hash. It will not be have the same public key if we're talking about. But if we'll have the same two blocks, for example, we cracking the elliptic curve. Okay, we can do it. We can reverse from we can do the private key from public key, and if we have this quantum hashing algorithm and we'll revert, we can find some suitable private key that produces the same wallet address in this scheme, as I see it. And is it possible or not? Pierre, what do you think about it? I was asking about Yen about this, but for you, it's the first time I'm asking you.
It's a bit
I
more.
love Pierre-Luc's answer, but I'll just want to rephrase what was said. When you're using hash cryptography, you're verifying the uniqueness of data. If it's really easy to find a duplicate hash, then it's very hard to prove the uniqueness of that data. So it's what we're really talking about here is knowing that this is the accurate block, this is the accurate certificate, this is the accurate document, this is the accurate software. And if there was a quick and easy way of getting a duplicate key that what they call an address collision, then you would be able to forge evil software and release evil software into the ecosystem that has the same digital signature, but the signature was signing the hash, and the hash has this alternate copy that's an evil program, but it has the correct signature and the correct verification. So that's the scope of the problem. But I love Pierre-Luc's answer.
Yeah, I'll go. Thanks for the context, Jan. So I'll probably go a bit more on the technical side. So, historically, there has been attacks on hash functions. Say MD5 is broken, so don't use it. You can, I think, find pre-image attacks for MD5. SHA-1 was broken with collisions about 20 years ago. Not for pre-image. So you can find collision classically for SHA-1, but if you just know a hash, the recovering a document that produced the hash, I don't think it has been broken yet.
Google actually created a fake Adobe PDF that had the exact different content, and they signed it with SHA-160, and they said, look, it's actually broken, get off of SHA.
Okay. I knew for MD5, but like for SHA-1, for SHA-2, like the Bitcoin mining in some sense is a pre-image attack on SHA-2. So like as the difficulty increases at some point, if it reaches 256 bits, it's essentially a pre-image attack on SHA-2. So far, there's no classical shortcut, but like SHA-2 is not known to be super robust. So people are like finding it like more like shakier and shakier. SHA-3 KCAC is more solid, like in its construction to resist quantum. That said, like on the quantum side, at least in the public domain, like the best attack is Grover. And Grover search, like in terms of number of like logical qubit, it's not that much, but like is the circuit depth. So like say for SHA, in theory, if you want to do a pre-image attack, it will take 2 to the 128 like cycles. So that's roughly like 2 to the like 10 to the 40 gates, or like at least like the depth of the circuit. That's compared to say breaking it's a curve cryptography, you require maybe like 1 billion operation at most. For breaking SHA, it's like 10 to the 40, so like 10 with 40 zeros. In practice, like that, like when we do error correction on the quantum computer, the more gates we want to do, the more physical qubits we need to burn to like remove all errors. If we only have to do error correction for 1 billion gates, it's a lot less than for 10 to the 40 gates. And the problem also is that the current generations of quantum computers, the next 10 years, they will run at maybe at most like 100 megahertz, 1 gigahertz. If there's 10 to the 40 operations to do at that rate, it's just going to take forever. So in the current state of things with textbook algorithms, I would not be worried that pre-image attack on SHA-256, not at 256 bits, just because it would take pretty much just to run the quantum algorithm would take the age of the universe. So like you could get there by the age of the universe, but like it's not.
Okay, that was really insightful and thought-provoking. Thank you so much. And I would also like to engage our offline speakers. Konstantin Papež, please take the floor.
Okay, I'd like to touch not too deep into technical details, but more popular thread. So in the beginning, when Jan started talking, he urged everyone to shift funds to post-quantum protected blockchains. Well, I actually would like to ask, why do we need to urge? Because, well, post-quantum threat narrative is actually debatable. So Google has already claimed to build a prototype with quantum supremacy, yet they haven't cracked any classical crypto. So what is this estimate 2027 based upon? So why do you think that progress in hardware building of quantum processors is, well, so urgent? Please.
I'm sorry, there's a volume problem.
Jan, I think it was a question to you.
Yes, Jan, your estimate is 2027 when Bitcoin is probably cracked.
So Riverlane said 2026, but then they missed their 2024 target. PsiQuantum says they'll have 1 million qubits, far in excess of what's required, starting in 2027. And that's, again, their marketing information. They said that they won't have the real estate with the lights on until late 2027. The other group that's come up with a public declaration was IonQ, and they told their stockholders that they will have income and revenue from running Shor's algorithm in 2027. I don't think that that's feasible for them, but these are the targets that are being given. And I think that we should plan the defenses before the plan the attack. It's I think that of those groups, that PsiQuantum is the most capable and the most likely to hit their target. But it's a target that comes from their marketing, and I just think that we should be ready before that. And I'm sorry, it's really hard to hear, so I wasn't even sure that that was a question.
Okay, and I want just to add a little. My common sense of situation is pretty same, and I cannot say exactly why on what I'm basing my point of view. I can say that it's based on it's. For me, it's just sense. I can say honestly, I cannot say based on this, we calculating this, measuring this, blah blah blah. It's a type of sense, and better for everyone say the same because it's only sense of situation. How we see it, how big a challenge still we have to pass through to achieve the main goal, universal quantum computer, or at least specialized cryptographic cracker. It's okay to not to build a universal machine. We can do a specialized machine. It's okay, and for quantum computer about their progress, why I believe them too. There are a lot of different possibilities to solve the current problems. There are different ways to build a quantum memory. There are different ways to correct errors. Sometimes we invent something new. We remember a year ago we all was excited with possible finding of Majorana modes in topological defects. It was Microsoft were trying to invent quantum chips. They failed. Yes, I know that they failed, but the something like this should happen. Who knows? Maybe it will be something with Cooper pairs in microwave emitters. Maybe it will be everywhere around. Mods will be fine. Who knows? And maybe we'll invent something in time crystal. When I was talking similar talks maybe in 2019 with the physics with the physicists, with the other with blockchain entrepreneurs, our calculations was much bigger. We were talking about tens, about maybe hundred, maybe not hundreds, maybe about tens. We were talking about maybe in the middle of this century. We were talking about 30s, about 40s, about 50s. Most optimistic people were talking about 30s. Realistic were talking about 50s. Right now, if we're talking about 50s in aspect of elliptic curve cracking, it will be pessimistic. Today, all realists talk about end of tens, beginning of the thirds, not about center of the century. So you see, all as Ian said before, current measurements they are very average. Usually, it's on the top of it's not the lower. It's not about earliest date. It's maybe about the latest variant. So everything can happen earlier than later. Sorry, maybe it was too chaotical. I was trying.
Okay, estimate shifted back, so the quantum thread gets closer. And okay, our headline is actually that crypto holders should shift their assets to post-quantum protected blockchains anyway, just because we should be ready for this disaster, apocalypse, yes, as it's often called.
Quantum apocalypse.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's hear
whenever
it.
it happens.
Let's hear it from Dmitry Nagornych, the CEO of the .flat project, a decentralized stable currency that is resistant to inflation. So please.
Thank you. Just I want to add only a few words on this discussion. for more common users like me, for example, I understand the Q day is like a threat of losing all my assets. And as for me, it is a matter of time. So as quantum computing is rapidly developed, so it doesn't matter whether it will be in 30s or in 40s. So I share the same view with the Cellframe. The same view that you have to take in consideration the long-term perspective. So you have not to look just near your nose, but to look forward. As for me, it is like obvious that this Q day and this Q threat will realize. So that is why we decided to build that project together. So to become like quantum safe, and like Konstantin and others said that crypto holders have to move some of their assets to quantum safe blockchains. And as for me, I believe that another very urgent issue you have to think about is not only to save the assets, but to save the value of those assets. So what indicators those assets will be pegged to, like to USD, for example, but it suffers inflation. So if you will try to look in the long term, so you'll better choose inflation safe and quantum safe assets.
Okay, thank you so much. If nobody minds, that would probably be the end of this first part, the first panel discussion. Thank you for this fantastic session. To everyone in the audience, we would like to ask if you have any questions to our speakers. Okay, just one quick question from our community members. They sent us questions online, and I would like some of our speakers in the first panel discussion to respond to the first question, or to the first and so far most important question, and then we will take a 5-minute break, okay? So the question goes like this: what makes Cellframe plus QEVM truly quantum ready compared to other blockchains that only claim post-quantum security?
We based from the beginning on the quantum cryptography, and the QVM have an advantage here because they has no quantum unsecure tokens. All 100% of their tokens are quantum secure. Unfortunately, our tokens still migrating, but we built on quantum straight cryptography. And here I want to know that we have selected crystal dilithium as the default cryptography for our project. 1.5 years before the first round of NIST challenge for cryptography standards. So we predicted the standard for 2.5 years before it became a standard. That's the answer. Maybe, Jan, you have something to add about QVM?
We're enabling the same cryptography for use in Web3 transactions, which means just being able to use JavaScript. And if you look at some of the other proposals that are adding quantum safety, there's going to be a large percentage of the users that don't do whatever the steps are, and then they're still going to be vulnerable. In the case of QEVM, we don't have any ERC20 tokens. There's no quantum vulnerable assets, and so it's very easy to have 100% quantum resistance and quantum protection. When we start doing bridging, then the problem there is that the assets that have been bridged are going to be vulnerable. And the flow of value needs to basically flow through those bridges to QEVM and to Cellframe. But as people, have existing banking relationships and exchange relationships, it's very easy to go the wrong direction. And so we need to add more of those business relationships in order to make the system round trip.
Okay.
I wanted to write somewhere, attention, use only CF20 cell token. Don't use ERC20 or BIP20. Our official token, only CF20. Just want to mention, for example, just not long time ago, I have a request from one of our biggest exchange where we are listed, and they asking to provide like a huge amount of ERC20 liquidity, because we still have interoperability between exchanges on ERC20, and it's weird. We should to switch on CF20. Hope it happens soon, because after this request I got some improvements from another big exchange that they agreed to implement CF20, because, for example, on Bitmart, on BingX, on Bitcoin Tree, on other small exchanges, it's present. So that's one of my first goal here, to propose CF20 everywhere. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this
over.
fantastic session. So that was a lot to take in, and now it's time to take a quick 5-minute break. Okay, and then we will be happy to proceed with our second panel discussion. Thank you. Let's give a warm round of applause. Okay, we're going to begin with our next exciting speaker, Mark Weber. He's the Quantum Universal representative, the head of quantum algorithms. Please, everyone, let's welcome Mark Weber. Let's give a round of applause. And Mark will be making a report on the progress of quantum computing, quantum calculations. That is a very exciting speech that we're about to hear now.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's great to be here. So yeah, my name is Mark Weber. I'm the head of quantum algorithms at Universal Quantum. We're a company that builds quantum computers. So I'm an expert on how to use them and how to get the most value and efficiency out of them. But my company is the expert in building them. So to jump right in, we build machines that allow us to control individual atoms. We fabricate a microchip, ions, atoms, charged atoms. They float a few micrometers above the surface of that microchip. You can see them in the little white dots on the art here. And we can physically move them around and manipulate their internal states. Each one of these atoms is a qubit, a quantum bit. And on the bottom left here, you can see individual, from the lab, addressed ions here, individual imaged of ions. And now, there's many ways to build a quantum computer, and I'm going to go into some of that. Really, today, I'm just going to give you an overview of how to think about the progress of quantum computing and touch on the encryption threat. So first, though, to take a really big step back, and this is helpful, to contrast the journey that classical computing went through. So in the middle here, we have the ENIAC machine. Does anyone know what this was built out of? Yeah, I think there's a few. This was built out of vacuum tubes. This was before the transistor was invented. This machine was used to break encryption in World War II. Yeah, so they were building machines, they were building computers, and computers were useful before they found the transistor. But it wasn't until the transistor was found that really that digital transformation that we know over the last 80 years was possible. And that's because this underlying medium, the transistor, was just inherently so great for what we needed it to do, like inherently scalable, as compared to a vacuum tube. You know, ENIAC machine was huge. I don't know how many bits it had, but not as many as your phone. Okay, and maybe we're familiar with Moore's law. We've gone on this journey of doubling our compute per cost over every few years, this exponential growth, right? But there is an end in sight for Moore's law. I think there'll always be progress on techniques and algorithms and new things around the corner for classical computing, but there are fundamental limits for classical computing. We need to make these transistors as small as possible, right? Like, okay, heat dissipation, that's important, But really, we're trying to cram as many transistors as possible into the smallest space. Now, already transistors are approaching the 50 or so atoms. You know, they're small. But as you go smaller and smaller, quantum effects that in this case are undesirable, this isn't good quantum, this is bad quantum, those quantum effects introduce noise. So we're at that limit now. We're getting close to it anyway on the progress within the underlying hardware for classical computing. And then enters quantum computing. So I mentioned a qubit, a quantum bit. We're familiar with bits. There's 0 or 1. There's no in between. Our quantum bit instead has some of these strange things that we might be familiar hearing: superposition, entanglement, quantum weirdness, right? And our quantum bit, to be technical for a moment, is this state that can be described on the surface of a sphere, okay? If this is the Earth, the North Pole is 1, the South Pole is 0. And if it was a classical bit, they're the only 2 points. But with our quantum bit, there's this combination that is possible. This combination, superposition, constructive and destructive interference, think wave-like nature, these features that we use to expand the possible gate set, the types of operations that we can do. With classical computing, you can do universal classical computing with just NAND gates. With quantum computing, there's a much bigger set of what we can do to this sphere. We can rotate it, not to talk about multi-qubit gates. There's a lot that we can do. And this expanded set of operations allows us to solve certain problems much more efficiently than classical computing. And a key point is that the quantum computer is not doing the same thing more quickly. As previous guests said, the actual rate of these operations can be orders of magnitude slower than a classical computer. But the expanded set of operations allows us to solve the same problem in inherently fewer steps. So, I mean, a glimpse at the possibilities, there's a lot. In terms of what's perhaps most exciting and near term, it's in the direction of simulating other quantum systems. I mean, it makes sense using a quantum computer to learn about other quantum systems, but the list, of course, goes on: optimization, AI, and so on. Each one of these areas varies with like how solid that foundation is of, are there pieces missing of the puzzle? Because when we make a quantum algorithm, it's not just a copy-paste of the classical algorithm over to the quantum. You get no advantage that way. You really need to think about how to reap that advantage from that expanded set of operations. And as I said, there's many ways to build a quantum computer. And again, let's bring ourselves back to the early days of classical computing, where people were exploring options of how should one build a computer. And when the transistor was first invented, perhaps, I don't know, it wasn't so clear at that moment that this was going to be the revolution that it was. So for quantum computing, there's many platforms being pursued. You've got superconducting, these manufactured circuits that need to be kept at near absolute zero, as cold as you get, basically. IBM and Google work on those. We've got trapped ions. We work on that and others, IonQ, Quantinium. Neutral atoms, quantum dots, NMR, photonic devices, and so on. The list really does go on. And they each will vary with regards to their strengths and weaknesses. You can think about fidelities and operation rates and connectivity. They will vary. But I would argue the most important one, and it's hard to quantify, but the most important one that will differentiate these is how scalable are they? Quantum computers exist today. You can log in on a cloud and run a toy algorithm, but they're not providing commercial utility. We need to make them so much larger. The quantum computers today have 100 or so qubits. To break the elliptic curve encryption of Bitcoin, you're needing 1 million qubits. That's 4 orders of magnitude growth that we need. And it's the scalability of the underlying hardware that will vary so much. And that journey will vary over the timeline. Some might be, you could argue, scalable to the 100, to the 1,000 qubit. And you really have to get into the details if you want to understand which of these platforms is really going to take you to the scale that you need. Okay, so it's a vibrant commercial ecosystem, right? People are working on hardware, software, algorithms, applications. Hardware that's not originally designed for quantum computing is now being sold for quantum computing. It's a busy place. Just briefly on this is a more technical one, but this is the reason that we need so many qubits. We say we've got 100 today, but we need 1 million. quantum error correction. Because when we build quantum hardware, we fundamentally come against this almost paradox or these conflicting aims that we have when we build quantum computers. Because we want our qubits, in our case ions, we want them to be so separated and protected from their environment. Any interaction with their environment, it ruins all that quantum stuff that we need for the advantage. So they need to be so separated from their environment, and yet at the same time, we need extremely precise control over their states. And it's those conflicting aims that make building quantum computers such a hard engineering challenge. And the reality is the error rates, if we say every time we do a certain gate on a qubit, the error rates today, roughly 1 in 1,000, maybe 1 in 10,000. But the error rates that we need to do the important applications like breaking encryption and other ones is closer to 1 in a trillion. Okay, that's a big gap. The hardware is not going to get us there, and instead it's error correction. And error correction for quantum, for now, let's say, is very similar to classical error correction redundancy. You know, you get a lot of qubits, in our case, working together. They represent one high-quality logical qubit, as we call it. And it's that logical qubit that we run our algorithms on. But that overhead, that ratio, is something like, it depends on a lot of factors, but let's say for now, 1 in 1,000. So you need 1,000 physical qubits for every high-quality one logical qubit that you get out. And that's why these numbers inflate to, say, 1 million. If we could make, and we never can, make perfect qubits, to break RSA or elliptic curve, we'd need 1,000 qubits. But it's the error correction, the reality of noise, that means that number's so much larger and places that emphasis so much on the underlying hardware being scalable. This is an image of a trapped ion quantum computer at the University of Sussex in a vacuum system. We've got the microchip here, but I'll move on. And I'm going to skip this again. I'm happy in the panel. I'm on the panel next to talk more about our particular approach and compare different hardware platforms. It's something that I think a lot about. So this is an example of an exponential quantum advantage, breaking RSA encryption, elliptic curve encryption. This algorithm was found in 1994 by Shaw, and this was a big breakthrough because this was the first time someone found an algorithm that is exponentially better on a quantum computer than a classical computer. Okay, and we've got a graph here. And on the x-axis, this is breaking RSA encryption. On this x-axis, we've got number of digits in the RSA encryption. On the y-axis, we have how many operations does it take to solve this problem. And we have 2 lines. In red, we've got the classical algorithm. This is scaling exponentially. And as we see the number of digits go all the way up to 256, the number of operations has exploded to near 10 to the 30. Essentially impossible, right? It's technically possible, but you're going to need millions and millions of years. In contrast, the quantum approach, because of that expanded set of operations, solving the same problem but differently, even if each of these individual operations is 100 times slower than the classical, we're spanning 20 orders of magnitude difference in the number of operations to break it. So it's these sorts of applications that are exciting for quantum. It's this exponential advantage. There was previous conversations on the impact of mining where we're going to use Grover's algorithm. That case is quadratic. There's a big difference between quadratic and exponential advantage, and it changes where this crossover point goes. Okay, so this paper is probably why I was invited here today. I wrote a paper on calculating the number of qubits that we need to break elliptic curve encryption. And there's a lot that goes into this, hardware considerations and error correction assumptions. And this is not the final word because both the algorithms, the error correction, and the hardware, they're all developing in tandem together. But bringing that together, we can come up with estimates, okay? And a key point that I really was interested in for Bitcoin is that question of, well, how long do you have to break the elliptic curve of Bitcoin? Because there's 2 kinds of attacks that are relevant. There is a storage attack and there is a transit attack. The storage attack is the example where you can take as long as you like. Now, under best practices, there's not any exposed keys for a storage attack. However, in reality today, there is a large percentage of tokens available, Bitcoin, Ethereum, with compromised public keys. And for those storage attacks, as I said, we can take as long as we like with our quantum computer. Now, that's in contrast to a transit attack, which is a concrete vulnerability time window when a transaction occurs and a public key is exposed only until it's incorporated. And that amount of time varies based on the network, the congestion, and the fees. Let's say it's 10 minutes for Bitcoin. Now, the reality is when we do these estimates, the number of qubits that you need to perform a transit attack in 10 minutes is so much more than you would need for a storage attack if you were taking your time and could have 10 days or a few months. It's roughly linear, okay? If you want it to run 10 times faster, you're going to need 10 times more qubits. So for breaking elliptic curve encryption and RSA, ignoring that time overhead, yes, it's 1 million qubits or so. There's a lot of time windows thrown around for quantum computing. And of course, everyone needs to balance the reality of scientific progress with marketing claims, and that comes from a company that is building quantum hardware. But this is coming. Maybe it's not in 2 years, but this is coming. The rate of hardware progress is very extreme. I might not say 2 years, but it is coming. So I would say there is time to adapt. But it's absolutely critical, whether it's for Bitcoin or alternatives, that this is taken into account. Okay, so thank you for listening. I'm going to be on the panel, so if there are questions, you can save them until then.
Thank you so much. We would like to thank Mark Weber for this insightful, thought-provoking, and actually very, very captivating speech. Thank you for this opportunity to take a deep dive into quantum computing. We really appreciate it. Okay, and we also want to encourage our audience tonight to ask questions. If you have any, please give us a sign or let us know. And we're proceeding with our second panel discussion, which is called the Cryptographic Response. And let me announce our speakers. So we have Cenk Bayrak. Let's give it up to Cenk. Cenk is the creator of CPunk, the first quantum-secured meme token on the Cellframe mainnet. Then we have Matthias Mende, founder of Bonnet's Market. Let's give it up for Matthias. A crypto enthusiast from Dubai, actively involved in the local and international blockchain community. Next up, we have Mark Weber, who we have already introduced, of course. Then we have Konstantin Papish, Cellframe developer who specializes in designing and implementing post-quantum protocols, responsible for the technical development of the network core and developer tools. And joining us remotely, we've got Dmitry Gerasimov and all our other speakers, Jan Smith, who we have already greeted, and we have just a second, Anton Gerasimov, lead researcher and developer in the field of post-quantum cryptography. So I believe I have announced everyone, and we are excited to start.
In the beginning, I want to mention that it was really, a really exciting lecture about quantum computer. And before we start to dive into cryptography, I want to just, Mark, always wanted to ask it to someone who developed ionic-based computers. I have heard about technologies that can group qubits in small ensembles of 2, 4, 8 qubits and behave quadruqubit or something like this. And just want to ask, will we have some? Is it possible to scale existing technologies of quantum calculation with such grouping of qubits together? It acts like error correction, or maybe otherwise it's just produce more errors, more noise with this connection. How possible to scale this? Will it be? I have heard about quantum entanglement between huge massive of particles, maybe 100 atoms or something like this. Is it effective? Is it a way for ionic computers, or it's better to operate with a single atoms? Mark?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I'm coming from Universal Quantum. We build trapped ion quantum computers, and our entire focus is building the hardware in such a way that we can get to 1 million qubits and beyond. So my short answer is yes, but the reality is there's a lot of differentiators, even within trapped ion quantum computing. But to make a more general point, such an important part, whether you're talking about superconducting of IBM and Google or trapped ions, such an important part is how you connect modules together. When you're trying to build a 1 million qubit machine, you can't fabricate this in one go. You can't fabricate a 1 million qubit chip. You can't fabricate a 1 million qubit superconducting device in one go. And so you need a way to fabricate individual modules, and you need a way to be able to connect them together with a quantum signal. And that's something that Universal Quantum does do differently. The more usually considered approach for trapped ions is something called photonic interconnects. So you have separate modules, each within their own vacuum system. You connect them together with something like a fiber optic cable. And this thing has been demonstrated. But the reality is the fidelity, the rates, and so on of that particular approach is orders of magnitude worse than what those same groups can do if you bring two ions together in the same place and entangle them. So there's different ways to do it. That's my key point, really, to your question. Our approach is all to do with shuttling ions around. We have our microchip. We can physically move our ions via just really simple stuff, to be honest, in terms of varying voltages to electrodes of this microchip that, by the way, is fabricated in standard silicon large foundries. So it really varies between hardware platforms. Our approach is all to do with individual ion movement, physically moving them around, connecting our modules together with that.
So that's in vacuum, this chip, right? To operate with the single atoms, single ions.
Yeah, so we build an individual module, the ions float above the surface of that module, and in our particular case, we can fabricate separate modules. You physically align them, and we've demonstrated the physical movement of ions between modules. So they're each in individual sort of electrodes, in individual wells, but they've physically moved around.
Okay, I have satisfied my curiosity in this direction, so let's return to the cryptography. And here we are. As we understand from previous talks, we have a really big threat, and what are the solutions we have? I have mentioned before that we have not only one possible victim. Yes, the first victim of a quantum calculation will be digital signatures, elliptic curves. However, there are other protocols that we need to upgrade to replace, maybe not so it's not so emergency, but also important. I'm talking about symmetric cryptography that also need to be upgraded. There is also one interesting moment that we haven't mentioned before, but right now it's became more and more important. I'm talking about anonymous cryptography, because current solutions for anonymous transactions, anonymity in blockchain, ever for anonymous DAO, for voting with disclosure, with personal disclosure, it's broken. It's became broken with the quantum computers, right? That's question for maybe let's begin from people in real life. One moment. Yes, Matthias, what do you think about it? Is our anonymous cryptography is broken with quantum computers, or how soon? You want to answer? Maybe I will answer by myself. Okay, I will say by myself it's broken.
No. We have a question for Matthias Mende, right? Dmitry, would you please repeat your question once again?
I didn't.
Sorry. My question is that the quantum computers will broke cryptography as well as anonymous cryptography. I'm talking about I'm talking about ring signatures, such things like Monero, Zcash, some technologies for anonymous voting are all based on classical ring signatures, and they also became vulnerable for quantum computers as well. Am I right?
Well, I think for quantum computers, everything will be vulnerable as soon they reach 1 million qubits, like Mark explained in his presentation. But there are so many things which are encrypted. It can be the signatures, the exchanges, the consensus itself. So I think I would like to understand how the signatures and the signing in is encrypted, because I think that's the first thing which will be broken if it ever gets broken.
Yes, and we have a different attack surface here. First of all, we can just maybe restore the private key as usual, and another way where we can use quantum computers possible is to disclose their anonymity, to disclose the person who signed the ring signature. Jan or Pierre, what do you think about this? I remember, Jan, you did some research in this direction. Or Pierre, up to you guys.
Sure. So there are ring signatures in post-quantum cryptography, but it's completely different. And this is a ring learning with errors. And it's basically a game of grapevine, or pass the message along and always get it wrong. And after so many repetitions, it's hard to distinguish between who sent it and what the original message was. This is a post-quantum resistant system. There are also fully homomorphic encryption systems that are post-quantum cryptography. Not every FHE is automatically post-quantum, but the ones that are broken are multi-sig, multi-party computation, secret sharing, and pretty much every method of collaboration between people in banking. So I suspect that smart contracts and the use of blockchain will replace multi-party computation for banking. Banking will need to start using post-quantum smart contracts in order to do the things that they're currently doing today in cryptography directly.
Yes, I agree with you. Just I was talking about anonymous cryptography, about ring signature.
That's
Anton,
broken. Yeah.
yes. Anton, can you explain a little for our listeners how looks like the modern ring signatures in a modern blockchain, how they act, and what is the Fiat-Shamir scheme, what it means, how it works?
Yeah, so in terms of a ring signature, we're looking at, kind of a similar mechanism to your ordinary digital signature. But instead of key generation followed by the generation of the signature and then the verification. So with a ring signature, you have something called a combining function, right? So this is what Ian was explaining, where values are passed around, because the end result that you want is you want a signature that is carried out in the name of a group, right? So that the individual signer cannot be identified within that group, but you know that that signer falls within the group, right? So that has numerous applications in terms of, like was said before, in terms of secure voting, in terms of transaction anonymity. Now, Fiat-Shamir is an interactive protocol, and it's it can be used for zero knowledge purposes. But so what happens with Fiat Shamir is that in its initial format, it requires an interaction between both parties, and it's so this is what's called an interactive proof protocol. Now, that's not practical for blockchain purposes, nor very many other purposes. And so you have a reduction called a Fiat Shamir heuristic, which allows you to lodge the results of the calculation onto the blockchain, and those verifications can be done elsewhere without the complicated interactive protocol, which really is not practical at all for not just blockchain in most practical contexts.
Yeah, the practical context is important because we can modify it with some simplest way with increasing its size or something like this, but it became really huge. It's a little bit not usable for blockchain. However, for the modern time, there are few projects that call them post-quantum mixtures. They use such huge, non-usable for blockchain purposes things, and just for mixtures. However, it's only for mixing for on-chain. Here, what's the question? By the way, it will be question for you too, for Anton and for Pierre. There is such signature, maybe you have heard about it, chipmunk signature. And chipmunk signature, if you listen now, if you subscribe it on our socials, you have heard that the chipmunk signature was developed by Ethereum community, and we in Cellframe did its own implementation because original one was a Rust-based. We did a C-based implementation, and this chipmunk signature, it's aggregating signature, not threshold, as I remember, just aggregating signature. It's also very good. It can be used for rollups. Rollups are also important, and they also became broken, by the way. You were talking about classic rollups. I don't understand how it can be attacked with this classical thing. Doesn't matter. We are talking about anonymous cryptography, and the next step from the chipmunk ring signature that is ready is a chipmunk ring signature. We did some draft in this direction. I can say that it's production-ready signature. However, it works, and it needs some improvements just in this verification moment that we're talking about. And here, when I first tried to compose this ring signature, I just implemented stock Fiat Shamir verification scheme for this, and it looks like working. I put it in code and was looking workable, passed it through the lot of unit tests. However, when I dive deeper a little, I found that Fiat Shamir is not quantum resistant by itself. However, a lot of researchers upgraded it a little, and it became quantum resistant. So the question, what needs to be done with Fiat Shamir verification to convert it in Acorn verification, suitable for chipmunks, for chipmunk ring?
Yeah, so the in this new algorithm that is under development, there will be we're taking the primitive of the chipmunk signature. So for those that don't know, there was an earlier signature that was very similar called squirrel, and squirrel evolved into chipmunk. And so this is a multi-signature, right? So meaning that it aggregates, it does not provide that ring functionality. So in this new framework that Dmitry was just describing, the one-time signature is generated using the primitive that was introduced in the chipmunk signature that was initially developed for the aggregate signature, but in our case is going to become the primitive that is homomorphically combined to generate a ring signature with the necessary anonymity properties. And separately to that, there's also a zero knowledge verification scheme that was just addressed here. And that is done through the iterative chaining of a hash function. I believe it's the SHA-3. And so for that, that's kind of a de facto kind of alternative fiat shamir, if you will, where that is how that interactive property is removed. It's via the chaining of the hash functions.
Yes, but iterative hashing, unfortunately, it's a quantum vulnerable part. That's another place where that should be, I don't know, some address it, some replace it. The question I have, Pierre, you did some post-quantum solutions for Ethereum as something like post-quantum vault. What cryptography have you selected for? And have you heard something about chipmunk signature in the Ethereum community or some other communities, other blockchain where you did your solutions? Just I have heard once that this signature was invented and then no information after, no plans for integration. Nobody interested in community with such things. What do you think?
I've not seen much about Chipmunk. I started hearing about it like only fairly recently. And for what we did in Ethereum is we did the Lamport signatures. Actually, like we look at the NIST methods, and what we wanted to do was to do a smart contract verification of some post-quantum signature. And the main issue with Ethereum is the gas cost of the individual operation when you compound it to verify cryptographic signature, it just becomes exorbitant. So like you don't want to have users paying like 1 ETH in gas to verify one MLDSA signature. And even if you take elliptic curve signature and you decompose that in the basic operation, it's also exorbitant. So like the opcode discounts the verification of elliptic curve signatures. So and given that, we had looked at post-quantum signatures, and then the only one which is doable at like a reasonable cost is like the good old Lamport signatures from 1979. So like you can use them one time, but like it's quantum resistant. It's kind of like the hydrogen atom of quantum resistant signatures. It's not the like whatever happens, like it will not break, so it's kind of like a fallback, but like it's definitely not the like in terms of user experience, like the reusable signatures are like definitely preferable. So on the side of Chipmunk, like one thing to be careful about, like with maybe like the new post-quantum schemes is going to be, and why it's important to have the standardization is like when will come the time for hardware wallets, like creating like secure element chips in silicon that is quantum resistant is extremely expensive. So like it's tens of millions in investment. So like every time a new signature scheme comes about, like somewhere downstream, someone's gonna have to put the money into the silicon, like to make it into hardware wallets. So that's why it's like it's important ideally to try to stick to either the standards or like for like very good new schemes, push them through the standards so that there can be a pipeline, an efficient like capital pipeline for hardware security.
Interesting. Okay, let's pass microphone to the hall, to our guest in real life. And here with cryptography appears another question about its implementation purposes. So here I want to ask Cheng, what can you say about implementation of modern quantum resistant cryptography for such a thing like like your project, and maybe you can talk about something more about Messenger that's coming.
Okay. We don't use, new stuff, but we are just using NIST-approved stuff. So about the cryptology we used IES. We generate a key, and we encrypt the message with IES symmetric encryption. Then we let's call it a box. Then we encrypt that box with Kyber, and all users have their public keys on our key server. So if I want to encrypt a message for Konstantin, I just grab his public key from the key server. I encapsulate the encrypted message with this key, and then I get also his signature from the public signature from the key server, and I sign it and send it to Konstantin. He opens the message because it's encrypted for him. Then he checks, and the system checks. Then also, as our key also registered in the key server, he knows that it's coming from me. So everything is intact. We are using two different encryption algorithms. One is encryption algorithm. The other is we can say two encryption algorithms and one signature plus the encryption algorithm we are using is also checking for if the message is tempered. So we're using two encryption algorithms and two algorithms to check if the message is tempered or not.
Okay, it was a really detailed story. Just I'm interested where can fit anonymity in this schema. What I want to say, because you have a messaging connected to the blockchain, right? All the messaging left some tracks. No payments. That's the tracks. And here appears question of anonymous transactions. It will be very good for such system, I think, to implement the anonymous transactions for messaging and maybe some mixing inside, some Tor-like networking. Here I'm just looking for people and so also asking some such question. How hard will be to make some Tor-like based messenger or something like this, fully anonymous, without any connection, without any tracking? Ever it's connected to a blockchain, ever you need to pay for every message. No, no empty talks will be in this. Only for serious talks, this messenger will be.
Okay, you asking me how hard to build something like that?
Yeah, imagine you have a ready signature, it's ready, just take and implement. How
Actually, I can say you don't need to work on signatures or new encryption algorithms because they're already there. You can just vendor the encryption algorithms, and signature algorithms is there as well. And to build a messenger, you're not inventing new stuff. It's already done. You just need to get a messenger and change the encryption algorithm. And now you have a post-quantum encrypted messenger, and it's not very hard. I mean, especially in nowadays with artificial intelligence, it's gonna take maximum 1 month, 2 months to build something from scratch, not more.
Incredible. That's I think only possible with AI help, I believe, because in the past such projects took about 6 months, maybe a year
Actually, I can say for our side, the alpha of the messaging, as you know, we start from 0, we vendored everything. I think the alpha took like 15 days. Okay, we worked pretty hard, I agree, but it took like 15 days. And worst case with the tests, it's gonna take maximum 1 month, maximum months.
Yeah, AI driving is changing. It's a game changer, by the way. And here it's also important in our talk because such thing like complex testing, like development of our own algorithms, so like rigging signature. In the past, it was only big corporations and governments can let themselves to invest in such thing. Now we can develop it within small groups and have some real results. For example, this current draft of the Cellframe ring signature I did personally, single person in 1 week, so something like this. Yes, it still has few unfinished things, and we need a lot of work to prove it that it works how we expected, and it's not breakable. However, 95% of work I think was done in this week, and it's incredible. However, there is a big problem that you need to explain, right? And you need to explain, and you need to have expertise to prove that the result is not hallucination. That's the biggest problem. Usually, it's a two different person. One person can say what you need to do, check your errors. It's a manager. One person is a manager. Another person is a software developer that can say that bullshit, it's not code that we need. And it's problem to combine it in one wipe coder, and usually wipe coders breaks into two parts. One of parts, it's a manager without expertise. That's the best part, by the way. They did the best job I found, because manager without high technical expertise, they can explain. They can explain. If you can explain to human, you can explain to AI what you want to do, and they do it. And they, if their job doesn't require high technical expertise, for example, they do sites. It's also complicated thing, by the way. It has a lot of underwater stones, but it's not a rocket science, let's say so. And I know a lot of managers that wipe code sites very well, much better than live coders in opposite does. And another part is real coders, real developers that can develop, but I cannot explain what they want to do to another person or AI. That's the problem. They have a really high expertise and will be very good to pass their knowledge to AI, to multiply it, to have a synergy between AI and human. Unfortunately, we have such problems. People that can do synergy, usually they are managers. People that have expertise usually cannot explain what they want to do to AI. Okay, it was my personal pain. I did to be. By the way, here is sitting Konstantin Papish, and if we're talking about AI, you has been today a skeptical person. Let's stay in this applause, and can you comment a little specifics about of usage of AI in a blockchain development, maybe in cryptography, because you have seen the chipmunk code. It's the first AI-driven developed cryptography. What do you think about this?
Well, there is much to say about AI-driven development, okay, primarily LLM-based development. Well, the experience of applying the LLMs in...
Agentic AI development. It's not just agentic AI.
Well, yes, agentic AI. The experience of applying them in coding the backend. Well, we don't talk about front-end and websites, yeah, which managers can wipe code just with a single prompt, showed that, okay, it brought me to some conclusions. The first conclusion is that the language, the programming language, is actually, well, it matters a lot. So when we talk about some simple, well, syntactically, simple language as C is, well, C is really simple language. So it doesn't have any, well, constructs and some sort of syntactical sugar as, for example, C++ has. It's completely another, well, field, especially if we talk about metaprogramming and various, well, objective-oriented stuff and so on. So when you apply a simple language like C is, you mostly don't have to pay much attention on the, well, how the code, how correct the code itself is. Because, well, the blocks are predictable. So the code blocks and the modules, most of the difficulties appear when, well, in C we have manual memory management, and we have also, when we talk about multi-threaded programming, we need to pay attention on synchronization, so synchronization primitives and concurrency. But mostly the entire, well, the flow is really predictable. So you need to be a, well, as Cenk already said, you need to be an expert in your domain just to, well, to wipe code, some, well, proved and correct algorithm. So you can just rely on what it gives you, well, from this first prompt, from the second, and even further. So, for example, well, I watched the Chipmunk implementation, but myself, I used LLM to code the decentralized exchange. Well, I can say it is more or less difficult, but well, the volume is is very big. So I mean the volume of the code itself and the edge cases you should take into account. So when you use a regular LLM, it can just overflow. Well, the entire algorithm can just overflow its contexts. Most of them don't have enough context to hold all the all the details. So just you need either to remind to an LLM everything you have mentioned before, or well, we use our domestic implementation of an context improvements, yes, let's say so, smart layered context, well, which is a system, a helper system just to, well, to focus an LLM on, well, on the domain and or not to lose the details. So in this dynamic kinetic process of coding. Well, because when you use an LLM, it's a dynamic process and it's a repetitive process. So you must verify, well, right after every piece of code it gives you, you must verify the result. And to help it be focused, you need some sort of context layering. Yeah, so that's why we don't use just simple LLM and prompting it. We use, well, some more difficult system. Well, the experience is mixed, as I already said. So on one hand, you can't predict when you plan the algorithm, when you just make a solution, a general solution, you can't predict all the details. It is a flexible process, agile. Okay, let's call it agile. So you need to change your mind during this process. So maybe you face some difficulties and even impossibility to implement this or that feature, well, in current scope. So you need to, well, modify it, and you, okay. what I want to say, just vibe coding is not a silver bullet. So you still need to be an expert in your domain. You still need to be an expert in the language you use, even if it is some simple language as C is, or for example Rust, yes, and so on. We don't take some difficult, as we call them, functional languages and so on. And you need to verify constantly, every time you need to verify the results. Well, that is actually the key to improve your performance, coding performance, and to deliver better. Okay.
Thank you for sharing of your experience. Matthias, maybe you want to say something. I have seen some activities of your hand with microphone.
I have a very important question to you, Dimitri. Since Cellframe is a EVM chain, and you have your own blockchain, but you also have your tokens on Ethereum and on Binance Smart Chain,
on
Web20.
Yes.
So the question is, how do you achieve actually the post-quantum cryptography in your blockchain? You already have your own protocol?
We have our own protocol. We have mainnet on CF20 standard. It's maybe about 10 or maybe 10 or 15% of our tokens are circulating on our native protocol, so they are quantum safe. However, we have a big problem because we launched our token before we prepared the protocol itself. Unfortunately, we had to do it. We have a really long story of development. We have started at 2017, in the December of 2017, so we can, 8 years will be and only at 2020. 21 to 22, I don't remember for sure, we have launched the token, so we were postponing it by the readiness of the software. Unfortunately, we had to do it earlier with our old partner, and this caused the problem, my pain of migration. We have the bridge. We have the listing of our native protocols on some exchanges like Bitmart, BuyingX, and their Bitcoin tree. So there is a choice between them. You can register, purchase tokens, and withdraw them on a native protocol. It works, but for some reasons, still most popular token is ERC20. If you're talking about BIP20, people usually purchase it on a gate and migrate it through the bridge to the CF20 protocol. That okay, it works. But for some reason, a lot of people purchase and hold on ERC20. I don't know how to say people migrate. Maybe key is hardware wallets, because not of SFPL or Everledger support Cellframe protocol. However, as I know, most of holders hold their savings on software wallets. They don't use on cold wallets, just store somewhere it's seed phrase. And this way it will also work with CF20. But I don't. I think it's kind of inertia. Should happen something. Happen something that will frighten people, and I really hope that it will not be quantum apocalypse itself. That something will frighten people, not the apocalypse itself. To let them this gap between shit happens and shit is going to happen, and to let them to convert the quantum and safe savings to the quantum straight networks.
Thank you. And all right, so you hope that the users, they convert their tokens on the Cellframe network, but also the industry has to adapt to your network, which means that Cellframe needs to be integrated into wallets, into exchanges, And then the other protocols, like not protocols, but let's say USDT or other stable coins, they should also start issuing on Cellframe, right?
USDC. We have rapid USDC and have some messages from circles that they will accept our rapid coin in case of quantum apocalypse. Yeah, I am right in this, right?
Yes, it's rumored that Circle has such plans, but they just didn't provide us details.
That's Jan said. Jan, can you comment this? Circle said that they will accept our rapid token of USDC.
So USDC I discussed this at a conference with the Circle employees, and they said, well, when you're closer to mainnet, we'll talk about deploying our contract on your network. And that would be an official Circle contract with an official Circle mapping between the CF20 and the smart contract running on QEVM. So it's a possibility. They're open to it. And what they want is the integration and control that is required. Another way of doing the same thing is to get some of these bridging protocols to implement the bridging protocol on the chain. And then we would be able to, using EVM, shuttle assets to and from our network and the other bridges and the other endpoints. This is a really big point of concentration for me. I put a lot of attention and effort into this because what we need is a flow of value from the unsafe chains to the safe chains. And I'm trying to figure out different ways of making that happen. One group is an investor group. Another is a simulation on emulators. And another is basically making ease of business use and compliance with standards. The use of EVM for doing transactions extends all the way up to the central banks. For example, the Chinese yuan, when it is issued as a digital currency, they use EVM to do it. It's not the Ethereum virtual machine, but it is an EVM that is, closed source and locked off, but it's in EVM.
Clear. Yes, that's the solution, and now it's clear with this rumors. It was not rumors. It was a little wrong understood thing. Anyway, if they're ready to approve such integration when they will participate as well, it's really good news because Cellframe is going to support not only EVM compatible smart contracts but also will have a native smart contracts. Anyway, for such thing like stablecoin, I believe they will not need smart contracts at all because what they need? They need a ban list, or USDC has no ban list as I remember, or they have it. Doesn't matter. If they don't need it, that's simpler, just token. Anyway, it's another why I have asked about all of this, because we are talking about cryptography and its application. And here, why I have mentioned AI, because usually such talks in pre-AI epoch were just academic talks. It was just maybe it's not about real product, will be. It wouldn't be about some maximum MVP, not the real product. But here we can shorten this way from this academic talks about modern cryptography to the real production ready. And here I think only the way will be to make quantum resistant product better than the classical one. People will, and maybe only when we'll do, let's say, wallet should be better than MetaMask. transactions should be quicker and cheaper than in Ethereum and Bitcoin. And that's generally all the requirements, because usually people has no experience with other protocols, only these two. And if you have a protocol and software for this protocol with a better user experience than these two, usually you have an advantage. Okay, I think we can also interesting talk. Yes.
Yeah, if nobody minds, I would just take the word and say that it has been a really powerful discussion, and we had a unique chance to get exclusive insights from the industry leaders. And we might proceed with some questions from our community members, if that is okay with everyone. Oh, and we also have some questions from the audience. Amazing. Okay, let's start with them.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lana. I'm founder of Circuit Labs. I'm very curious about your opinion about liquidity fractionalization that's going to happen when, quantum computers come forward and start attacking it. Because what happens is there's a lot of dormant wallets and a lot of dormant liquidity. And also, there will be a certain separation. So some people will have moved and bridged their funds to quantum secure solutions, and some people will not have done it yet. So my question is about the liquidity fractionalization and the arbitrage opportunities between the quantum safe and non-quantum safe positions, and what are we going to do with all that liquidity that will be taken by quantum powerful computers and that will be dumped on the market? So yeah, I'm curious about what you guys think about this topic.
This depends from actions.
So I co-authored.
Let me comment it quickly. It depends from actions that will do Ethereum community and Bitcoin community, what they will do with their blockchains. For example, if they just froze, or they just stopped produce all the new blocks, yes, Jan, what do you want to say? I see.
I co-authored a Bitcoin improvement proposal to archive, lock, and then eventually burn assets that are not moved to post-quantum cryptography. This is part of the Bitcoin improvement proposals. However, there is very little traction politically for any quantum safety at all. What the Bitcoin core developers have said on the mailing list in response to my messages, Lop's messages, Hunter Beast's messages, and more, is that 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. We don't care what the value is. We don't care what the price is. Anything that happens to the outside world is not our concern. So there is going to be a massive flash sale. And what Dmitry was proposing is a way of protecting value by locking the ledger and having a post-quantum version of Bitcoin with all of the original holders. There are other proposals to do similar things. Vitalik Buterin's proposal is to rewind the chain, which would break all of the bridges and then destroy everybody's private keys so they're no longer usable for transactions. And after that's done, anybody who doesn't have their mnemonic phrase doesn't have any money. So this has been discussed. It's a very, very, very big problem. One of the biggest aspects that you touched on is liquidity fractionalization. The opposite I expect to occur. I expect liquidity to start concentrating where there is safety. The large players, I'm trying to avoid their names, that all have billions of dollars under management, have said that they will not abide any decision wherein Satoshi's coins are vulnerable and seized. The problem is that the people and the politics of those people is getting in the way of any effective solution.
The answer, I think, I can add only one thing, that from position of the Cellframe, we are trying to invent something for this, like post-quantum insurance, when you connect your quantum safe wallet with your non-safe address, and if it will be drained, we can play it back. But yes, generally it does not work, and I understand Bitcoin maximalists that they say if it will be hacked, it will be hacked. Who knows? Anyway, only what we can suggest is migration. Migration and such event like we do right now, post-quantum dawn, is part of our efforts to populate, to propagate this information, to let people know about this threat, and that their ERC20 tokens and BIP20 are unfortunately not safe. Really, I respect a lot Ethereum. They did a lot of things, Bitcoin as well. Everything they founded the crypto industry, and now their unsafeness became one of the biggest threats for the industry. Because if they will worry about it, I believe most of everyone in Cellframe will migrate. If Bitcoin start to migrate, in Cellframe will be migrate almost everyone for sure. So, as I said before, everything we are all interested to make Bitcoin and Ethereum quantum safe.
I'd like to add something to the question. So the lady said also about fractionalization of liquidity. So I think this is interesting for the first hackers which actually manage to break the encryptions, because the non-dormant or dormant wallets which sitting around, which is approximately maybe 30% of the entire Bitcoin supply. So the smart hackers, they will really open the wallets which are never touched and then slowly sell. Because if they open Satoshi's wallet or a huge wallet, from what I understand from some of the core developers of Bitcoin, that they will just roll the blockchain back to the last block and restart it again with some quantum proof encryption. But which they use, we do not know, because there is this NIST company, and I don't know if they have a backdoor or not, but it will be the first ones. I think they will benefit from it if they do it silent. But if they go hardcore, then it will be very catastrophe for like a few weeks, and then probably things will be good again.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Okay, then a few questions from our online community. So questions on the synergy of AI, quantum computing, and blockchain. We might ask Mark Weber, if you don't mind. Which technology, quantum computing or AI, has the greatest potential to influence the future development of blockchain technology? And which brings more benefits to blockchains and which poses more threats?
Yeah, so for AI and quantum together, just briefly, I was talking about this earlier. There's this quadrant that you can imagine those intersecting in different ways. You can imagine using AI to improve the creation of quantum computers, and we were talking about LLMs for blockchain development. It's relevant in the same ways. There's a lot of software that needs to be built and design elements. And then there's the possibility of quantum computing using AI in terms of actually running AI on quantum computers, and there's certainly a lot of research and theory on that particular direction. In terms of the practicalities and when, it seems a long way into the future. But then to bring blockchain into it, okay, we've heard enough about the quantum threat to blockchains, but what could we possibly do with blockchains using quantum technology? It's hard for now to imagine large-scale quantum compute integrated to blockchains. There's nearer-term things in terms of encryption being boosted by very small quantum systems, random number generation being a component of the encryption. That'd be a very small quantum system. It's fun to start imagining a fully quantum blockchain network, It's very far into the future. It's hard for me to comment on AI onto blockchain, so I'll pass on that one.
I think I can add a point here to kind of continue on as to what Konstantin was saying is some of the things that we're discovering here at Cellframe Research in terms of using AI, so agentic AI for cryptographic research, in particular, post-quantum cryptography, which is what we're interested in here, is that when you are working on tweaking existing cryptographic primitives into slightly new combinations to kind of create new, let's call them tweaked algorithms, is that you've got the sort of formal and academic work in terms of the formal proof of security properties. So mathematically speaking, this has to do with applying probability theory to the underlying algorithms, the underlying calculations. And that's sort of very much a theoretical mathematical process. But there's also, in addition to that cryptanalysis, when you're doing this kind of research, you also want to be testing your cryptographic development on attacks, right? Because this is a huge part of cryptography, is actually testing against attacks, security against attacks, because also we're not at a university here, and we are interested in a practical protocol that is resistant against real world attacks. So one of the powerful capabilities that we're seeing with AI is really being able to generate unit tests of attacks in a high volume so that we can achieve that, those practical security results, or at least testing out the resistance of the newly developed algorithm to attacks. And that's kind of, as to the point that some people were already making, it's a huge accelerator, because, where creating those attacks would have been a very manual process with manual coding, taking months for a team of people to put together. Now, with AI-generated code, you can get a very high amount of effective unit tests up and running in timescales that were inconceivable before. So in terms of really, driving that research and driving the product forward, that's really somewhere where AI has been shining for us.
Okay, thank you. And probably one last question in this panel discussion, in the second one. How can AI and quantum technologies actually work together rather than as competing narratives?
There's a lot of overlap with that question and how I answered the last one, but I'll try and give a bit more context. Agentic AI in the same way for, say, blockchain development. I mean, personally, to give a personal anecdote, I work on building software to improve quantum error correction, and I use LLMs to create that code. There's so many other design elements for sort of microchip design and so on that I believe AI techniques, even broaden our AI definition slightly, genetic algorithms and so on, that are relevant for design processes. In terms of the quantum advantage running AI on quantum computing, this is something people are thinking about. They're building protocols for neural nets, but with qubits. But I would argue it's early days, really understanding the fundamental advantage. I mean, for example, LLMs rely on huge data input, right? We're trained on huge data input. And data input is one of the hardest bottlenecks when we design quantum algorithms. It's harder to find advantage there. Say you have a subroutine, you've got a huge advantage, but if you're bottlenecked on the data input problem, then you don't have an advantage in the full flow. So I'm hopeful, but it's one area, say, as compared to breaking RSA encryption, elliptic curve, end-to-end, really well understood for quantum computing. Quantum computing with AI, extreme amount of hope there, but there's more work to be done on really understanding it.
Thank you. Let's stay hopeful, but be prepared anyway. And now we're going into our 5-minute break. Let's thank our speakers from the second panel discussion. Please give a warm round of applause. Thank you. There is a selection of drinks and snacks. Everyone, please help yourselves. So, the wait is over. We are incredibly excited to introduce the brilliant minds who will be diving into one of the most practical topics in our industry. So, the name of the third panel discussion is Practical Applications of Post-Quantum Cryptography. Please let us join our welcoming let us welcome our panelists. And let me announce our speakers for the third panel. Andy Kamitronek, NodeSys, CEO of NodeSys, a company specializing in developing solutions for the Internet of Things and industrial technologies. Welcome. And I hope we have Kishan Dwivedi tonight. Kishan, hello, a co-founder of QVerify and Atlasoid Security, specialization information security, blockchain project code auditing. Welcome. So we would also like to invite Konstantin Papej, who has already taken part in our previous discussions. And Dmitry Nagornych. I hope he's around and he will join us anytime soon. Okay. I guess Dmitry will join us quite soon. So we are ready to begin, and I hope that our participants are ready as well. And let's proceed with our third part, the third panel discussion, practical applications of post-quantum cryptography. Let's get it started.
Let's begin. And so on, we told, by the way, about practical implementation already a lot. So today all our topics mix it together a little. So here I think we can talk more about AI-driven coding, because cryptography implementation without AI, it's impossible. Not LLM, by the way, agentic AI, it's a difference, because just LLM, it cannot code, it has no hands. It needs MCP for integration, it needs context, it needs memory. By the way, but I don't want to focus on this from the beginning. Let's start from another topic, and this topic is post-quantum cryptography, real and fake post-quantum projects. That's a problem of our new burning industry, because if you look on this post-quantum coins, we can find that most of these post-quantum coins are not post-quantum. And so this will be the question, how many projects that are trying to position themselves as post-quantum are not post-quantum, and this same question for Kishan involved in such checks. Kishan, how often you check projects that are fake post-quantum?
Yeah, so mostly every project which is already on the stream tries to, with their community pressuring them, they just claim that we are quantum proof. But in reality, they don't really do anything on quantum side or anything. They don't really put any effort on putting the quantum security. to be honest, if they really put out the effort to implement quantum security, that would have been much easier to market their quantum security, which is usually I have seen like 40 to 50% projects claiming to be quantum safe aren't really quantum safe. They just claim because that what trend says and they want to go with the trend. So a lot of projects claiming to be quantum proof aren't really implementing any of those quantum signatures or any quantum cryptography on their project, but they are just riding the hype boat and just claiming with their community.
Incredible numbers. I have think they are lower. By the way, here is another specialist. Jan, can you comment fake post-quantum projects? I know you have some. Ever you are collectioning them? Jan, are you here? Jan Smith. Jan have switched off for a while. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, he returned. Jan?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Question is, you are collecting, as I remember, you are collecting the list of quantum scam. So we are discussing how much of quantum scam is in post-quantum industry and what kinds of the scam, because some of them are not scam, just maybe unfinished projects or maybe projects with differentiation of, for example, they have non-quantum secure cryptography as default, but maybe they have some quantum secure vaults or something like this. What's the differentiation of such projects that you have investigated? Can you talk about this a little?
So the first thing I look for is the cryptography. If the wallets are not using post-quantum cryptography, then they're not safe. Even if like Algorand, what they did is they take a copy of the blockchain, and then they made a backup of it, and they signed the backup a second time with a post-quantum algorithm. That protects against zero attacks. Yes, they're using post-quantum cryptography, but it has no practical use. When I was looking at most of the chains, they just simply lied. Most chains that claim to be post-quantum cryptography are just flat out lying. And Kishan was there when I confronted one of the lying groups at Dubai earlier. So the problem that we have is that we need to verify not just the cryptography, but where it's implemented and what are the wallets stored in. And I started off the list, but this is literally a full-time job most of the time. You can ask ChatGPT or Grok, hey, what is this repository using? But the answers have to be verified manually because it makes many mistakes. Also, like some versions couldn't read from a website. They didn't include the data in their training set and so forth. Now, there is a lot of different ways of implementing post-quantum cryptography. One of the most complicated ways is to take an old elliptic curve and then sign a document or sign a key or sign a hash or something, and then wrap that in a post-quantum container. And this is what's actually recommended by NIST, and it's what's recommended by Cisco and others for banks and traditional use cases, because it uses both sets of cryptography. So the presence of old cryptography doesn't necessarily mean that it's insecure. There are other issues which would require a full audit. You basically have to understand the cryptography to understand in those cases, is it quantum safe or not? The publicly accessible part is sometimes the risk. Bitcoin has a post-quantum hash where if you use the SegWit version 2 or SegWit version 3 addresses, you're totally fine. If you get a new address every single time, UTXO is safe. However, the pay-to-public key, which was used by Satoshi and others up until 2012 when it was deprecated, as well as Taproot and Lightning, all have exposed public keys. One of the difficulties is that sometimes users are allowed to make mistakes, and a lot of exchanges, especially Binance, are using the same address over and over and over. So the public keys have a well-known address. And then sometimes there is these edge cases that are really obscure and most users never know about. For example, you can have a script that has an output, and the output is the public key to the script. And so the public key becomes known, and the output can be stolen even though the transaction hasn't occurred yet. There is a lot of weird, bizarre things that can be done in cryptography. I'm going to cover the different implementations that are used in the Migrating Web3 presentation. So I don't want to do too much overlap. But the number one scam is just putting the words post-quantum on a project that is not. And when this is done, they get sales. And so I maintain a spreadsheet that is unfortunately very long with very, very low quality projects filling most of it. It looks like there's about 75 projects. Of that 75, 6 actually have post-quantum cryptography. In the case of 2 of them, they implemented Falcon before it was fixed. And so they're vulnerable. They're using post-quantum cryptography, but it's very easy to attack. In the case of several others, they implemented the wrong algorithm, and then they implemented MetaMask on top of that. They said, okay, well, we've got a wrong algorithm, or we upgraded the cryptography, like rainbow signatures. And then they added a layer 2, and the layer 2 is running MetaMask. This has been done recently as a planned thing by several chains, and the problem here is now that the quantum attacker could break the layer 2, drain the funds, and then publish them to layer 1. So where's the protection? There's no economic defense, and it's possible to essentially drain the whole chain as a result. Also, there's a public company traded on NASDAQ that is claiming that they can secure any chain by using a layer 2 or a ZK proof. But the problem is that the verification of that proof can be attacked, and the quantum attacker can drain the entire layer 2 just by changing the verification process. So unfortunately, there's no simple answer to your question because there's a lot of abuse, a lot of scams, and a lot of improper use of cryptography.
But you know what?
Yes.
Okay, to be noted, just the fact that the number of the projects pretending to be quantum safe is increasing, well, means that actually quantum threat, occupies the minds, more and more minds, and well, it was expectable. As soon as this threat becomes more and more visible, well, we will have, just similarly to others, more and more scams and, well, imposters among us.
So that is the reason we actually started the QVerify. The motive of QVerify was to always create a community-driven certification or a audit So be a marketing gimmick or anything that can't be real. If we can really audit it, if you're open, we can definitely audit it, and through the medium of community, that is the most transparent way for any project to showcase that they are really post-quantum, not just claiming post-quantum or throwing the word post-quantum around to get some marketing fluff and VC money.
That's a very important work, by the way. I want to say thank you for this. And here also, we have two projects. We have here more than two projects that are based on Cellframe. This verified and quantum safe for sure. And I want to ask Andrei about his point of view and experience with post-quantum technologies, how business looks on this technology, on its application. Is anybody in business worried about quantum threat? I mean, not about just blockchain. We are now more related to enterprise implementation of post-quantum technologies.
Yeah, right. So, hi everyone, I'm Andy, and yeah, the question is great. While we are developing and hold many negotiations to make new partnerships on our decentralized factory, so we talk a lot with different business people from real economy sector, from the production, from the manufacturing, and those guys, they don't bother much for quantum secure or quantum risks. But I guess that those risks are real, because if we're talking about large companies, large factories, corporations, so they all use cloud services, you know, like Microsoft Office, like Jira, Trello. So, and there is a risk for those service-oriented services which are in the cloud, because the information, the databases, data transactions, the messaging inside the company, that all is at risk. And I guess that I believe we will have soon new projects here in our ecosystem, and it would be great then if someone will start from like developing simple projects, simple quantum safe projects for like everyday usage. So many of us using Kanban boards, companies use Jira, startups use Trello. So I guess this is the point to start to develop and launch and popularize those projects like Kanban boards, or like something like Brian said, Google Suite, so Google Sheets, Google Documents, so some of the Microsoft Office services. I think that's the point to start. And then if we go further with it, so look at the companies. They have CRM systems, they've got CAD systems, if we're talking about the engineering companies. They've got ERP systems, and all of those projects, they are not quantum secure. And I believe this is a huge point for the growth of not just the ecosystem, which we are representing here today, but the companies in the field of the quantum secure solutions for corporate sector. I think starting from doing something a little bit at the start, this may grow into something interesting, and when all the things with quantum apocalypse starts, so at least they will be ready to provide those services to small firms or startups or even corporate sector. But as I've said before in the beginning of my speech, so as for now, corporate sector does not, like, they're not talking about, they don't really believe it because they don't know much about it. And the other thing, the other mission of our team, our ecosystem, all the quantum guys. So our mission is to be a social explainer for them, because they really don't understand anything in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. You wanted to comment it? I have seen your fingers.
Yes, thank you. Google Chrome is currently post-quantum cryptography. Google began the adoption of post-quantum cryptography in 2018, and they performed large-scale tests. Everybody's browser, if they have restarted the application in the last 3 months, it is post-quantum cryptography. The TLS certificates are distributed by a system called Acme, and your SSL certificates are basically having shorter and shorter expiration dates so that they can force everyone to upgrade more gracefully. The SSL certificates are the main point of contact for most of those systems. The exception to that would be like Git. You don't need to break Bitcoin, you just need to break the Git repositories of a bunch of people who work on Bitcoin, and you can put, a delete function into the entire chain. They could do a Git rollback and they could do other things, but the problem here is that the Git is essentially a trusted resource. The other places where there's distributed keys where this matters a lot is IoT, because we don't have 64-bit chips with large post-quantum certificates in the ecosystem. Can't get a PQC hardware chip from anywhere except for one new public company. There's a lot of problems with embedded systems. Banks have already upgraded their front-facing systems simply by upgrading their SSL certificates, but the mainframes in the back end are doing jobs where they're SSHing from one system to another, executing the command and then logging out. The quantum attacker would have to hack the bank in order to get the public key in order to change it, and then the bank could just undo whatever damage was done and fix it in a few minutes, because all of those things have a log. Every transaction has a log, so they can just look at the log and hit undo and it's done. It's fixed. Their current interbank communication is the Financial Inter-Exchange Protocol, also known as FIX. FIX is wrapped over TLS 1.3, which is post-quantum. So there is a lot of ecosystems that are migrating. However, there are laws. There's 2 executive orders, one issued by Biden administration and one issued by Trump. There are laws in the United States, laws in Europe, Australia, and the UK that upgrading to post-quantum cryptography is a legal requirement, either to do business with the government or period. So there is some upgrades.
Yeah, good comments. From my side, I want to mention that, Andrei, it was interesting to hear about Jira and Kanban, that there is such possible request from the business. Why it was interesting for me, because it's one of our side projects that we do right now, Project Monthly. I'm disclosure a little talk about it. So we develop blockchain driving post-quantum CRM system to something like Jira or Redmine, because the system are not really good, and we found that with AI helped it a lot. By the way, I also maybe a little later want to talk about some AI development techniques, but here I want to pass microphone to Dmitry Nagorny. Here's the question. We develop talking about post-quantum cryptography that's used to implement some long plane cryptography, for long plane solutions, because if we have some short-term solutions that can be upgradable, we don't care a lot when it happens, then we elaborate it. But for long-term solutions, we need quantum cryptography. And here your project connected with inflation straight currency. It's not a stable coin, it's a flat coin. Can you disclose a little about it and what the challenge do you face in connection with a quantum threat when you develop your flat coin? I'm talking about your oracles that collecting data. Is it how it's important to be quantum safe for them?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Well, I'd like to add, before I start answering your question, I'd like to add a few words about the previous discussion. Well, it was said like there are plenty of fake quantum safe projects, and I cannot but mention the question that was asked by the audience. Do you think that the Web3 projects are really community driven? I don't believe to this. I believe that the technology is driving the future of those projects, because there are lots of lots of businesses which are based only on the like social mass and nothing more. But we all can see how cryptography and mainly its applications in blockchain, how they changed the world reality, and it made so we can see the trillion and trillion dollars industry, a huge industry, the meetings like this, and the blockchain forum and everything. So I believe that I remember a funny phrase by Warren Buffett, who said only a low tide will show who was swimming without the swimming suits. So when some risk realizes, so there is a like risk management. We are aware of certain risks, but one of the strategy to couple with it is to just to close your eyes and forget, because sometimes managing those risks may be too expensive. So, for example, it also can be like said about this quantum threat. So, as nobody aware of it in the way they should be, that's why they don't pay much attention, and that's why they don't migrate to quantum safe networks. But when the risk will realize, and most of us understand that it may realize, it mostly will realize, and it is a matter of time, and the consequences will be quite dramatic. Well, another thing I have to touch is decentralization. So if you remember, in the beginning of the 2000, the main interest from the audience to the Bitcoin was that, and the first Bitcoin enthusiasts, they were joining the project because of decentralization, because it was impossible to take away your belongings, to take away your assets, your value. That's why it is quite frustrating for me to realize that most of the blockchain users adopt USDT, for example, which is centralized, and you simply can be, like your assets can be frozen. It is quite frustrating thing for me. And answering your question, so as you've mentioned, we are building a quantum safe stablecoin, which is stable to inflation in this or that way, and is pegged to a basket of real commodities. So the main idea was that you can consume the same amount of day-to-day products like corn, coffee, rice, or whatever. With each token you have, you can consume the same amount of products in 10, 12, or 20, 100 years. This is it. So, and we believe it should be quantum safe, decentralized, and that's it.
It was massive. Really, mix of threats, because we here face it not only quantum threat, but anonymity threat, inflation threat. By the way, that's the answer why people prefer USDT than Bitcoin, because they don't care that government or Tether will steal their money. They more care about the traders will manipulate the price and will steal their savings through the stocks. So why stablecoin so popular. By the way, little going deep in my memories, when appeared stablecoin, it was 2018, the beginning of 2018, and in this year it was the beginning of the crypto winter. It was the second big crypto winter, as I remember, and I remember talks about it. The people were talking that Ethereum, Bitcoin, it's falling down, maybe jump back a little, then falls again, and a lot of people think that the future of cryptocurrency will be stable coins. Why they were named stable coin, not dollar coin or fiat coin. They stable because people were scared about crypto volatility, and it was only in 2018, because before this, yes, everyone knew about the volatility, about ultra high volatility in the crypto world. However, it was acceptable, but in 2018, for a lot of people, it became unacceptable. And now, if you look in backs of average trader, we'll see that half of his savings will be in stable coin. It's usual rule: half in stable coin, half Bitcoin, Ethereum, shitcoins, something like this. Crypto produced the requirement of stablecoin, and here flatcoin can fit, I believe, well. However, I want to switch on another moment, return back a little to anonymous cryptography, and here is my question to verify. There are any protocols or rules or something like this for ring signature verification? I mean, post-quantum ring signature. Were any projects that came to you and were asking to verify the ring signature or not?
Yeah, so as of now, there is only one ring signature project I can remember of, and that was, I believe, from Cellframe, I think. And that is the only project we have seen for the ring signature post-quantum verification. In the industry, we haven't seen a lot, and I believe this will be one of the first. And we are still working on it, and hopefully this will be the world's first ring signature, which is post-quantum.
Interesting. There are present signatures. There are a few projects. I told about them before. It's post-quantum mixtures, like post-quantum tornado or something like this. Why they don't verify the cryptography? That's interesting. Maybe because Bayesian is shady from basement. I don't know. Who knows? Yes, I am obsessed a little with the key ring signature. I am looking for its application, and here is maybe the question to Andrei. Back to Andrei. What do you think about how can be actual such solutions that propose high cryptography post-quantum state anonymity in corporate sector? What I'm talking about? It could be anonymous voting for something like this, and in connection with blockchain, it can be something unmutable and uncrackable with quantum computers. What can it be? I'm looking for value for enterprise sector. What I'm talking about? Maybe you have some thoughts about this.
That's some kind of unexpected question from you. So, well, if we're talking about the quantum secure or quantum risks, I told about it. So the corporate sector, I guess, in the place where
it's about anonymity.
Yeah, anonymity. Yeah. In a place where we operate with the factory. So I think that's not like the important thing for a corporate sector. And by the way, if we're talking about a mix or a combination of blockchain with a quantum security, so why negotiate anything with the owners of factories or with the top managers? So when they hear the word blockchain, they often think that they still think that blockchain is crypto and crypto is illegal. So, and sometimes it's tough enough to make them understand and turn them into our religion as well. So often those negotiations are going into a dead end. I'm honest with you guys. So, and I think that the combination of quantum security and blockchain, to be anonymous or something like that, I think that will be a tough mission for us to try to integrate something, try to negotiate, launch. So basically, I think that. And that the problem is, the next problem is like the company owners, they've got on mind that I'm the owner and I want to own all the information, all the databases, everything. On my servers, but we all know they hold this information, hold these databases in a clouds, which are not quantum secure. Maybe Jan will tell more about it, about quantum secure clouds. So, and I think that the most important thing is to like be a social explainer of the quantum secure. The blockchain, I believe the corporate sector is still not ready for it, Dima.
Interesting. So corporate sector is more ready for quantum threads than for blockchain implementation.
I guess if we are talking about like a salesman, if I'm in a position of a salesman, this easier to sell quantum security than quantum security with blockchain. Because, as I've told before, many old school factory owners and business owners, we're talking about not huge corporations like maybe some car corporations like BMW or Mercedes-Benz. No, we're talking about the middle-sized factories And those guys, I tell you, believe me, when they hear the word blockchain, they are beginning to shake sometimes.
Don't mind blockchain about post quantum.
Yeah.
Let's focus on quantum thread, post quantum cryptography. Jan mentioned IOT. That really depends on cryptography. And here's a question: you the factory project expect contacts with these fabrics. Yes, you told about this. How important for fabric owners to protect their communications? What I'm talking about? How entangled some fabrication parts between them together? I mean, have them some departments on the big distance between them, and maybe they need connection between them. And if this connection will be hacked, it can cost a lot. So possible such point of interest when the post-quantum encryption can reduce some possible risks or so.
Yeah, I understand the question. So if we're talking about the communication, it may be internal communication in the team. It may be external communication with the customers and clients. So I guess that communication security is crucial for the business. For whole corporate sector, not even factories, not even manufacturing, all the corporate sector. And this goldfish is, I guess, this goldfish is ready to be sold, them.
So it's easier to solve, for example, enterprise post-quantum messenger than enterprise blockchain solution.
I would say enterprise quantum secure CRM. That might be a good deal. Yeah.
May I add?
Incredible, because we are developing such thing for internal usage.
Yeah, but
driven with only one developer, and I have heard that it can be required by corporate sector.
Yeah, Dmitry, I'm sure it can be sold. Yeah.
May I add a few words?
We in development we are basing it on a dedicated database, cockroach database that we are planning to connect together with our blockchain. And here's maybe a question. By the way, sorry, you wanted to ask it something?
Yeah, I want to add a few
Dmitry?
words to the Andy's opinion about that. Like blockchain solutions are not quite suitable for the enterprise, and they are frightening of these words. Well, it is. You can hardly find an educated person in the world who didn't hear word Bitcoin and doesn't know in general what it is. So it became popular as it produced huge economic benefits to those who adopted it. So I think that actually, well, those CDBCs, the blockchain bodies are talking about, and those, like digital assets, most of them, they cannot provide, significant market advantages to the adopters. So as any of the enterprise will see, his competitor, using blockchain solution and making twice, revenue. So he will quickly adopt whatever, because you don't really need to understand the technology you use in details. We all use smartphones, we all drive cars, but actually if you take any common person and ask tell me in details how does the car work? So I think that only few can answer it correctly. That's why we are talking tonight about very sophisticated issues about you know, like those cryptographic algorithms, you know, those signatures and things like that. So as we see people who use quantum safe algorithms, blockchains, and they make, I don't know, like 10x revenues, 10x markets they obtain. So in that moment, we will see the you know, wide adoption of these technologies and the blockchain technologies in line.
Okay, and thank you for your answer. And in connection to this topic, I want to add maybe last big topic for today. It's I think it will be the hardest cryptography that we still has now in production. And its implementation will be important not only for us, but for common people and specifically for business. What I'm talking about. Homomorphic encrypted large language models. Large language models and small language models. What does it mean? Imagine LLM, AI, agentic AI running over blockchain. A lot of such projects, by the way, it's not the first one. But imagine such project when it's encrypted and this running LLM accepts encrypted request, processing it inside, encrypted, and reply, also encrypted, without disclosure of request and response as well. It's possible in theory. I'm not talking about practice implementation. It's possible only in theory. In theory, there are a few practical implementation of neural network training. However, they are very they consume a lot of calculation power, so maybe 100x times more than usual. And anyway, it's not a deal of modern days. Maybe in about nearest years, hope AI helps. In this, we'll have such homomorphic encryption algorithms that can let us to run AI over blockchain, and it will be okay for people to use it, because ever right now people worries about that their ChatGPT history is stored by some private company, but worse of this will be if your ChatGPT history will be public. Yes, I remember about this story when they publish it, all the users' histories. So the question, I think it will be to Konstantin. Can you comment? Can you say how hard will be to build AI over blockchain with homomorphic encryption in case of imagine that a required homomorphic encryption algorithm is ready?
Well, in my opinion, AI and blockchain are, well, barely fundamentally compatible, actually. Well, blockchain requires determinism. Every node should keep the same state all over the entire network. The AI algorithms, on the other hand, handle it another way. They are, okay, when they work on some computations or developing or proving a theorem or elsewhere, they evolve their solutions and they mutate all the time. So it's not compatible with with the idea of the blockchain. So how should we store this data on the blockchain? How much how much space do we need?
No, don't store on a blockchain. I'm talking about running like 2D apps, like in Cellframe, like we have with VPN, for example.
Okay,
in,
I see.
Cellframe.
So if we imagine that this is like a decentralized service, which is, for example, okay, the purpose of this service is distributed AI calculations. Well, it's not that hard to implement because we already, in Cellframe, we already have actually a full infrastructure for building such services. So, and it's one of the use cases. I think that it can be accomplished in, well, in months. With help of LLM, by the way. Yeah. So,
Agentic AI.
yes, and agentic AI. But I also wanted to touch anonymity topic. You know what? Anonymity, nobody noted that actually anonymity contradicts with the purpose of cryptocurrencies. And well, the cryptocurrency is like an application of blockchain. What I mean, so zero knowledge algorithms may actually destroy the trust into the currency because, well, it always was like this that exchanges and transactions are transparent, and one of the values of any coin, okay, we don't talk about what this coin is backed with, but also trust and transparency is also valuable. And when we shift to zero knowledge blockchains, talking about cryptocurrencies, I think that they clash with the idea that transactions and blockchain must be verifiable. So, okay, talking not about algorithms verification, but rather about the transactions and interchanges. So I think that in case of, some information disclosure, as for example with GPT history of requests, yes, this is very meaningful. In case of a cryptocurrency, well, I would debate about if it is really a valuable and, meaningful direction.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I need to break in. I have to interrupt you because we only have 10 minutes left. My hands are tied. We cannot extend this session any longer. So I want to show my appreciation and thank all the participants of the third panel discussion. But before we wrap up, just probably one last question from our online users, from our community. How are projects taking practical steps toward building quantum-safe infrastructure now that the quantum threat is no longer just theoretical? Is there anyone who'd like to answer that?
Yeah.
Well, actually, the developers of our alley projects can explain better.
Well, can you repeat the question, please? So how are we managing?
Sure. Once again, how are projects taking practical steps toward building quantum-safe infrastructure now that the quantum threat is no longer just theoretical?
Okay, thank you for the question. Actually, it is not our point to build this ecosystem. We are a part of the ecosystem, so which provides this quantum safe, place to run your apps. That's why our main idea for the real projects, to migrate first and then provide our real users with this, already quantum safe infrastructure.
I think the question was about why we think we should do something if it's still theoretical threat.
From this point of view, it is quite a simple question. If you can avoid any risk, you should do this. And if it is such a frightening one, so you can lose all your assets, you can try your best, you know, to avoid it. And if there is a technical, you know, a ready technical, you know, solution to this risk, so why not to use it? I think it is quite obvious that most of the projects should think about it.
Jan, you wish to say something?
So this is an answer that varies by industry because industries use cryptography in different ways. The banking industry is the one that people, you know, point at first, and they're taking this very seriously. HSBC has been doing a migration to post-quantum cryptography for 5 years now. When you look at the automotive industry, they use RSA keys to protect that system. And the problem is a quantum attacker would be able to generate a USB drive that could just steal any car. And Stellantis and other car manufacturers have not taken the threat seriously yet. Telecommunications, they have to switch to 6G to have post-quantum cryptography included. Samsung has several groups dedicated to just generating quantum-safe products. When you look at this problem holistically and you look at the entire, you know, series of industries, you're seeing different approaches based on how each industry was using that cryptography. And some of them are slow to act, like the car industries, and others are very fast to act. But everybody is going to have to adopt some form of post-quantum cryptography in order to continue having legal compliance. So it's a very critical thing in, you know, 4 continents, 5 continents, where we have to switch to the cryptography. We have to switch how we're doing business. We need to have a post-quantum method of signing documents. And when you look at some of the supply chain networks, the networks are, you know, signing contracts and publishing bids and, you know, verifying authenticity. When quantum computers become ubiquitous or, you know, just common, or someone could just rent them on cloud, it becomes a very, very serious problem for those suppliers and those ecosystems, those networks. And the easiest way to, you know, perform a migration is to move those ecosystems to post-quantum blockchain infrastructure, where they.
Thank you for it.
Yeah, we're deeply
for the bit.
grateful for you sharing your profound expertise, everybody. Thank you so much for your participation. And once again, we want to thank Dmitry Gerasimov, the CEO, visionary, and founder of Cellframe, who made it possible today, who made this exclusive event a reality. Dmitry, if you just want to say your final word to wrap up, just to finish our today's event.
It was really interesting talks today. I'm really satisfied with it. I got almost all the answer on all my questions. I believe you also have heard something that is interesting for you. Still a lot of things that we haven't discussed, but unfortunately we cannot, we have limited time. So thank you for all your attention, for your support, and we still, I think, will continue to run such events, and see you next time.
Yeah, so that's a wrap for our Post-Quantum Dawn event. And today we really took a deep dive into one of the most crucial topics of our time, how to prepare blockchain and cryptography for the quantum era. We discussed both the risks and solutions, post-quantum algorithms, the power of artificial intelligence. And once again, a huge thank you to everyone for your attention, your questions, your participation, and for being here with us. Let's build a secure future together. Thank you so much.